I am Carrie. I'm in my late 30s and work as an office lady while also helping out at my family's liquor store. Until 6 p.m. on weekdays, I work as an office lady, and after returning home, I assist with the accounting and management of the family liquor store. Back in the day, our liquor store was very prosperous, supplying alcohol to hotel banquet halls, local bars, restaurants, and various other places. In our neighborhood, there were no other liquor stores, so we were able to operate our business with no rivals or issues. However, in recent years, restrictions on serving times and other factors have dramatically reduced alcohol consumption. Not only banquets, but even some bars stopped serving alcohol at night. Naturally, this brought severe financial difficulties to our family business. Being the eldest daughter, and with my younger sister Amy already married, I was the one striving hard to turn the business around. Moreover, my parents' accounting was sloppy. We already had debts, and when the business began to decline, my parents continued their traditional methods, unknowingly letting the debt grow massively, leading us to the brink of bankruptcy. Nevertheless, due to my father's wish not to close down the liquor store, I, who had been living alone, decided to move back home 2 years ago. However, just running the liquor store wouldn't be enough to pay off our debts, so I chose to keep my current job while assisting with the family business. On weekdays, when I finish work and come home, my father would greet me at the shop's open shutter with his favorite drink in his hand.
Ah, you're finally back.
Dad, have you been drinking again?
These bottles won't sell just sitting here. I might as well drink them.
From his smell and slurred speech, it was obvious that he drank a lot. Dad, please stop drinking the stock. Raising his voice, he replied,
A daughter who can't even get married shouldn't be lecturing me.
He then went inside the house. I cleaned up the messy store and started working on the books. My dinner time, after wrapping up the day's work for the liquor store, is usually past 9 p.m. Even though I'm used to it, I'm still hungry. With both parents already asleep, I head to the kitchen, prepared some porridge, and then prepared breakfast for the next morning. For breakfast, my mother prefers toast, while my father prefers porridge, so I prepare both of their meals daily. And that's how my day ends. On weekends, when I finally get a day off, I'd love to sleep in until at least 10 a.m., but by 8 a.m., my mother forcefully wakes me up. Hey, hurry up and warm up your father's soup. What? Why can't you do it? Why should I do the housework when you're here? Just get up already. My mother seems to think I'm some kind of maid. Indeed, I've always been meticulous and loved cooking and cleaning, so I naturally took the lead in helping with household chores. But when I was in high school, my mother came to rely solely on me for everything from taking care of my younger sister to all the household tasks. Tired of this situation, I got a job right out of high school and got the job I have now. The job was very challenging for me in my teens, and I felt like giving up many times, but each time I was helped and supported by my seniors at work. After all, I was woken up in the morning without a good night's sleep, and after finishing my chores, I went straight to work at the liquor store. From the beginning, when the business began to lean, I have been shouldering my parents' debts, which amounted to $30,000 per year. Frankly, it is not an easy amount. I've made significant savings, so my cosmetics are from dollar stores. My lunch is always a homemade lunch. I also minimized the use of heating up meals, trying my best to save on utility bills. Then I started to work on revitalizing our family business. At first, I thought that merely distributing alcohol directly to the stores weren't enough. I asked my father if I could do something with the internet, but he said,
The way we've always done things is the best way. It's not my fault, it's the world's fault.
While I was busy thinking about the store, my mother would keep pushing household chores onto me with questions like, Isn't lunch ready yet? Have you hung out the laundry? With all this work on the house, there was no time to think about how to rebuild the business and take action, and we ended up being behind the curve. Eventually, after putting in a lot of time, I started an online business, primarily selling unique and hard-to-find liquors from our store. Given the various restrictions and the difficulty of moving around in the world, this treasure hunt style of online business proved successful, and our business began to prosper. Concurrently, the mention of our store's name online brought more customers to our physical store, and my free time became even more limited. It was tough to be so busy and not have any time for myself, but I persevered, sparing no moment, all to reduce my parents' debts. Finally, we reached a point where my parents could sustain themselves. Amy has a baby in her belly. That's wonderful. Isn't it your first grandchild? As I expressed my joy, my mother frowned and said, That's why you should leave this house. What? As I stared at my mother for a few moments, not understanding what she was saying, my father, who was listening to my mother and I's conversation over drinks, said,
We're going to live with Amy and her husband, so I'm telling you to pack up your stuff and leave.
What? But I came back to this house for the both of you. Both of them wouldn't listen to my pleas. My sister has always been a free spirit, never helping around the house. Even though she went to a junior college wanting to become a childcare worker, she dropped out just a few months later saying, I got tired of college. After that, she continued to live off the money sent by our parents. This continued even after she got married. Apparently, her husband didn't have a stable job either, so the two of them lived on the money from our parents and their part-time jobs. Yet, they lived quite lavishly, frequently going on trips. I was somewhat aware of this situation but chose to turn a blind eye. Even when I was suddenly told to leave the house, I was too busy every day to find a new place. I begged my parents to at least wait 2 months and started looking for a place, putting my liquor store work on hold. A few days into this, I got a call at my workplace from my father.
Carrie, what the hell are you doing? The store's too busy. Come back right now.
I'm at work now. Ask Amy and her family to help. Annoyed by my father, who said I should leave the house but then selfishly tried to push his work onto me, I said that and hung up the phone. A few minutes later, Carrie, it's your father on the phone again. Again? I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. As I picked up the phone, my father repeated the same things and eventually started yelling at me.
Carrie, you can leave early today if you need to.
Though I still had work to do, I didn't want to cause any more inconvenience to my coworkers due to my father's calls, so I decided to leave early that day. When I arrived at my family's liquor store, I found my father drinking alcohol, even though the store was still open. Really? Drinking instead of working? I was infuriated seeing him like that. When I confronted him about his drinking, he explained,
Tasting the alcohol is essential to know the product. Just do your work and keep quiet.
Realizing there was no point in arguing with a drunk, I silently started my work at the store. From then on, I juggled my job, the store, household chores, and house hunting, resulting in an insanely busy schedule. One day, because of this intense routine, I felt dizzy at work, and before I knew it, I found myself in a hospital bed. I passed out and hit my head on the corner of the desk. Touching my head, I felt the bandages wrapped around it.
It gave us quite a scare. How are you feeling now? Better?
Tears formed in my eyes due to the kindness of my coworker. Over the past few years, I hardly received any kindness from anyone. No one appreciated me for all the work I did at the store and back at home. My alcoholic father and self-centered mother had pushed me to the edge mentally. My coworker saw me like this and said,
You've been working so hard. But you know, soon you won't have to do anything at home, right? Let's take it easy from now on.
I thanked my coworker for being there for me. I thought I'll be leaving my family home soon. Just a little bit more to endure. This gave me a renewed sense of determination. Eventually, I found a house and began preparations to move out. However, my parents nagged that since my sister and her husband would be moving in, I should clean everywhere around the house. Why don't you handle it yourselves? I'm not going to be involved anymore. To my response, which they didn't expect, my parents looked a bit surprised.
What's with that attitude? We'll be relieved to be rid of someone like you.
Despite working so hard all this time for my parents, I was dumbfounded at their lack of gratitude for everything I had done. Once I finished moving out, my sister and her husband promptly moved into my parents' home. Finally, I was free from my toxic parents. On weekdays, I went to work and returned home before 8 p.m. On weekends, I could sleep in, go for walks, shop, and truly enjoy my free time like never before. A month later, an unexpected phone call gave me a reason to laugh. What about this month's loan payment? Suddenly, I received an angry phone call from my mother. Huh? Loan? Isn't that the one you two created? After all the effort I put into reviving their liquor store and doing household chores, who was it that kicked me out for their convenience? I spoke so fast without giving my mother a chance to respond, but then I heard my sister's voice from the background. Sis, please help. I had no idea about the debt. I thought the liquor store was thriving, and if I returned, I'd lead a comfortable life. That is what they were saying to me. There's no way life is that easy. I could only laugh at my selfish family, my parents, and even my sister and her husband. There are 4 of you adults. You should be able to manage money. I could hear my mother and sister arguing over the phone. They were blaming each other, shouting terrible things at each other. They were so into it that they seemed to forget that they were on the phone with me. Listening to their conversation, I felt very disappointed, even though they were my own family. At the same time, my desire to no longer be involved with them grew even greater. My father, who would rather drink than work, my mother, who didn't want to do household chores, my sister, who hated working and wanted to continue depending on our parents, and her husband, who also didn't want to work. With these 4 people gathered together, there's no way that just the earnings from liquor store could cover the monthly debt repayment nearing few $1,000s, plus the living expenses of 4 adults. Frustrated with how irresponsible they were, I told them, I'm not involved anymore. Oh, by the way, I'm getting married soon and planning to move abroad in a few months, so don't rely on me. After telling them this, my mother went on about how I must have lots of money and that I shouldn't go abroad, but instead return home. Annoyed, I hung up the phone. After that, I did not answer any of my family's calls, although they kept on calling me many times. The next day, I changed my cell phone number and asked my coworkers not to transfer the call to me if anyone from my family contacted me at work. And I was able to distance myself from my family with the help of those around me. A few months later, before I left the US, I heard from a relative that the liquor store's online business I had built was also in trouble, with shipping delays and delivery of the wrong products, because everyone wasn't doing their jobs properly as expected. The store received so many phone calls with inquiries and became even busier. Then, word of the sloppy management spread as rumor, and the company's reputation fell, resulting in a drop in revenues. Simultaneously, rumors spread about my father's daily drunken activities in the actual shop, and the store was labeled as a place filled with drunks, which slowed the flow of customers. The family liquor store, which had recovered enough to make a living, was forced out of business in the end. Then the 4 people who had lost their jobs could not even find any jobs, and they lost the means to earn money, and they had to leave the shop and the house they had used as collateral because they could not repay their debts. The 4 people who had nowhere else to go tried to contact me, but thanks to all my relatives who took my side and kept my whereabouts a secret, I was able to avoid any contact from my family. Despite my sister being pregnant, all 4 of them remained unemployed. The 4 of them argued every day about how to make a living, and since none of them took the initiative to go to work, they ended up dumping their responsibilities on each other and had a huge fallout. I ended up marrying my coworker and transferred to an overseas branch. My husband was that one coworker who stayed by my side at the hospital when I collapsed. We had been close for a while, but we grew much closer after that incident. Around that time, our company had proposed for both of us to transfer to an overseas branch, and with various coincidences aligning, our relationship bloomed and started to date. And eventually, we've decided to get married. Having spent so much time trying to rebuild my family business, I haven't had much time for myself. But from now on, I want to cherish our time as a couple, working hard in both our jobs and our household chores. For years, I gave everything for my family, but they took it for granted and never tried to help or contribute, always relying on others. Well, it's karma to those who only think of their own benefit and don't put in any effort at all. I am grateful to those who saved me. Using my family as a lesson to be never like them, I want to live a joyful life, considering not just my own needs, but also the needs of others.
Oh, my ATM card is missing. I'm sure I put it in the back of this drawer. Could it be them? Despite supporting the livelihood of my eldest son and his wife, who have been living with me for several years, they've been ignoring me for the past 3 years. Even if they don't say thank you, I wish they would at least show a bit of gratitude. But I'm done with it. I will never forgive them. My name is Emily, 56 years old. I retired from my job to take care of my frail mother-in-law. Now, I make a living by doing remote work along with caregiving. I was supposed to retire in a few years, but I couldn't leave my mother-in-law alone, so I decided to live with her. My husband is on a job assignment away from home and can only come home once a month at best. But when he does, he brings a lot of her favorite vegetables and classic American desserts. Thank you. I'm so grateful for everything. I wish I could have given some to your father. Every time she speaks, she expresses her gratitude to us and her memories of my father-in-law. It's been over 10 years since he passed away from an illness. He was in the advanced stages of cancer and couldn't even eat his favorite foods at the end. If he had been examined earlier, he might have been saved. By the time the disease was detected, it was incurable and only symptom relief was possible. So, every time my mother-in-law eats something delicious, she wishes she could have shared it with her late husband. It's like her catchphrase. However, her health varies greatly from day to day. Some days she's bedridden and hardly eats, while other days she's up and about, even going for walks. I'm always surprised by her unpredictable actions. But as long as she's enjoying herself, I'm content watching over her. But there is one thing that troubles me, which happens 2 or 3 times a month. It's when my eldest son and his wife, who live nearby, show up. Hey, Mom, Grandma, it's been a while. You guys good? We're starving. Can you make something quick for us? LOL. Hi there, mother-in-law. We're hungry. Can you hurry up with the food? My eldest son, John, and his wife, Catherine. They got married a year ago and often visit us like this. They show up unexpectedly, demand food, and sometimes even ask for money. They probably know when my mother-in-law receives her pension. Hey, Grandma, today's the day you get your pension, right? Sorry, but could you give us poor folks a little donation? LOL. Here we go again. They won't leave until they get money. John, enough is enough. What about your job? You're working, right? Stop taking advantage of Grandma's precious pension. What? It's none of your business. This is between me and Grandma. Right, Grandma, my gentle and timid mother-in-law can't stand up to him and stays silent. She reluctantly went to her room, took out her wallet, and handed over hundreds of dollars. This was the usual routine. I can tell she wants to refuse and seems quite distressed, but can't say no. So, every time I speak on her behalf, when I voice my opinion, we usually end up arguing. I keep my husband, who is on a solo assignment, updated regularly. He often just sighs and says, "Eck, what a troublesome guy. Not even having a steady job. What is he doing? Even though he just got married, he's such a hopeless case." Though my son seems to be reprimanded, the phone calls don't seem to be effective. My mother-in-law and I feel exhausted just from the eldest son and his wife visiting. And we lose the motivation to do anything. I'm so tired. Yes, I really feel that way. It's like all my energy has been drained. We used to bear with it, thinking it's just a few times a month. But the frequency of their visits increased, and our stress kept accumulating. And then, an incident happened. One weekday afternoon, my son suddenly showed up and said, "You know, turns out I got fired from my job, so I was hoping to live here for a while. If that's okay, haha." What? Fired? It seems that he had caused various problems at work, like repeated unauthorized absences and losing a USB stick with important company data. At first, there was talk of a salary cut, but he got into a huge argument with his boss and ended up getting fired. Despite it clearly being his fault, he seems unapologetic. Damn it, everyone acts so high and mighty, even though they don't do their jobs properly. And this is why I hate people who act like elites. Anyway, I'll be moving in next week, so thanks in advance. Hold on, living together is out of the question. It's too sudden. My mother-in-law isn't in good health every day. I tried to refuse, but it seems like John has no intention of changing his mind. As expected, he reacted with frustration and said things like, "Och, it's already decided. I've already canceled the apartment lease and booked the movers. If you still say we can't live here, you'll have to cover our living expenses." I almost sighed out of frustration. I wish my husband was here to strictly handle this situation, but I can't do much on my own. Emily, is John moving in here? If that's the case, should I move to a facility? I'll just be in the way. Plus, they probably won't work. What are you talking about, mother-in-law? You don't have to worry about such things. I'll make sure John works, and I'll have him leave soon. I felt so sorry to even make the elderly mother-in-law worry like this. We might have doted on our only son, but we never intended to raise him to be so thoughtless. I don't want to say it like this, but the son I knew was a kind and considerate child. It seems like he changed after meeting Catherine. I told my mother-in-law many times, "You don't have to worry, I intend to protect you." The mother-in-law, who was tense, gradually relaxed. But before we knew it, the day had come for my son and his wife to move in. Until now, my mother-in-law and I had separate bedrooms. But she felt uneasy about being alone, so we rearranged the rooms and shared one. I thought my mother-in-law, who values each person's time and space, must have felt quite anxious to insist on being in the same room. Not long after that, my son and his wife arrived. From the first day, their words and actions were so shocking to us. "Hey, Mom, Catherine and I want to use the entire second floor as our room. That's okay, right? From today, the second floor toilet will be exclusively for us. You guys don't come up to the second floor." Exactly. After all, we're still a newlywed couple, deeply in love. We don't want unnecessary people coming and going. Please understand that, even though one of the rooms on the second floor was my office, all the items from that room were moved to the hallway on that day itself. I was utterly speechless. If we kept quiet, they just continued to do and say whatever they pleased. "Mom, there's still a mortgage on this house, right? I don't intend to pay rent until I secure a job. And I also don't plan to pay for food or utilities. Take care of it." I didn't have high expectations, but I increasingly felt irritated. "Yo, is that so?" From that conversation onward, I was ignored by the couple. Even after a week of living together, and with their things settled, my son showed no sign of job hunting. Plus, his wife would leave dishes unwashed, and hardly did any laundry. Moreover, my mother-in-law had a doctor's appointment every 2 weeks. However, when I checked the garage on those days, the car was gone, indicating the two of them used it without permission. When they returned the car, it was littered with trash, and the gas was almost empty. But they didn't even refill it. As a result, we had to take a taxi for the doctor's visits. Even though our tasks increased exponentially, my mother-in-law, who was supposed to relax, ended up helping out. When I asked John, "Are you even looking for a job? You're always out. At least do something. At the very least, clean up after yourself." He just ignored me. It seemed he clearly heard me, but chose to ignore me. Later, he complained to his wife, saying things like, "Lately, I've been hearing hallucinations, like someone talking about job hunting. I have a house and food. Why would I work? That's so stupid. And if someone notices a mess, they should just clean it up." His wife, without showing any sign of remorse, laughingly said, "I get it. Ever since I came to this house, I started hearing things too, and I've also seen 2 ghosts. So scary." I presume by hallucinations, he meant my warnings. And by ghosts, he was referring to me and my mother-in-law. The two of them were so inconsiderate and selfish. After discussing with my mother-in-law, we decided to let them be for a little longer. We believed an opportunity for payback would surely come. Just like the couple complained about us. My mother-in-law and I would always talk about them when they weren't around. Was there something wrong with the way I raised him? I didn't think I spoiled him. But given how he turned out, I must have been too lenient. What are you talking about, Emily? You've always worked hard, be it at work, raising your child, or doing household chores. It's John who doesn't recognize a parent's hard work. And honestly, his wife is the worst. I'd really like to see what her parents look like, being constantly criticized and treated poorly. My mother-in-law and I began discussing ways to evict the couple from our house. Since our bedrooms were together from morning till night, our conversations were filled with such discussions. I might have been devastated if I was alone in this situation. But being together made me feel that we could overcome it. Before I knew it, almost 3 years had passed since we started living together. After all, we've been ignored for already 3 years, haven't we? Maybe they thought we were real ghosts or something, lol. Indeed, lol, that's a point. But won't their savings run out soon too, considering they haven't paid a penny for rent or living expenses? They must be covering their phone bills and dining out costs themselves. From what I've heard, they are estranged from the daughter-in-law's parents, so they likely aren't receiving any financial support. They might be ignoring us now, but they'll surely come begging when they run out of money. We had decided that we'd retaliate then. The happening occurred 2 weeks later than this conversation. That day, we were busy getting ready for my mother-in-law's doctor's appointment in the morning. I noticed our son seemed anxious. It didn't look like he was hungry, rather, he seemed to be searching for something. I knew talking to him would get me nowhere. So I ignored it and went to the hospital. When we came home, the son and his wife were nowhere to be seen. Could it be? But just to be sure, I went to the bedroom. My ATM card is gone. I'm sure I put it in the very back of this drawer. Did they? This is going too far. It's a crime. As I thought this, my mother-in-law approached and asked, Emily, what's wrong? You look pale. Did something happen? John and the others stole my bank ATM card. It seems they took it that was in here. What? Our home loan is $1,300 a month. Despite supporting the son and his wife, who never paid a cent, this is how it turns out. Even if they don't say thank you, I would have hoped for at least a small show of gratitude. But that's okay now, I will never forgive them. It does seem like the card has been taken. But from what I can see from the online banking, no money has been withdrawn. I rushed to the bank to close the account. They were wrong to think they could withdraw money with just the card without PIN. The more I think about it, the angrier I get at them. When I told my husband, he said, "It's over, I don't mind cutting ties with them." My mother-in-law suggested reporting to the police. But we decided that would be our last resort. We quickly left our home. I felt bad for my mother-in-law, but we decided to stay in a luxury inn with a pool until the issue was resolved. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry for bothering you. I'll try to resolve this issue as quickly as possible. Please bear with us for a while here. Don't worry about me. I'm just happy to stay in such a luxurious inn. I decided then that once this issue is settled, I will find a comfortable new home for my mother-in-law. A few days later, after completing various procedures, I received an unexpected call. It was from my son. "Hello, Mom, you haven't been home lately. Are you on a trip?" I was worried because I haven't seen Grandma either. What happened? It's a bit strange that he could only speak to me when he needed something after ignoring me for the past 3 years, isn't it? Oh, what's up? You're speaking to me properly after 3 years. Do you need something? LOL. By the way, I don't need anything from you guys, okay? And please don't say that. I don't really understand. But I received an eviction notice to leave the house by the end of the month. I wonder what's happening even though it's our own house. The president of the real estate company that helped us was outraged when he heard about this situation. He said he would take care of the procedures immediately. But it was impressive that he sent the eviction notice to my son within just 2 days. The realtor acted quickly on our behalf. That's why I decided to tell my shaken son the truth. Oh, that house, I thought we didn't need it anymore, so I sold it. It seems the next buyer has been found, and they want you to leave soon. What? Even if you tell me that, we have no place to live. Where are you and the others now? We'll come there. Even at this point, my son and his wife are still trying to take advantage of us. It feels like enough is enough. Huh? Why are you suddenly coming to me for help now? LOL, you're such a pathetic man. You freeloaded for 3 years and continued to ignore me and Grandma. Isn't this a bit too convenient for you? Just to let you know, I plan to cut ties with you. Your father has also agreed to this. Please don't say that. I didn't mean to. I really wanted to get along with you and Grandma. I'm also looking for a job. My mother-in-law and I were dumbfounded by the blatant lies that came out of my son's mouth. If he had genuinely seemed remorseful, we might have considered it. But it was already over when he stole the card. By the way, you stole my ATM card from my bedroom. Right, what were you planning to do with it? You just wanted to get the money, didn't you? Lying won't help. No, that's not. My son already sounded like he was about to cry over the phone. Then, thinking that my son wasn't useful, his wife took over the call and started. "Excuse me, what do you mean by this? How can you not feel guilty about evicting your own son and his wife? Are you a demon?" She began berating me with a hysterical voice. "You also relied on Grandma's pension to live. You're no different from John, acting all high and mighty even though you're jobless." I was taken aback and froze for a moment. Jobless? If I was jobless, do you think I could pay the mortgage for that big house? I've been paying $1,300 every month. And by the way, I'm not jobless, LOL. It felt like a waste even to tell her the truth. Basically, she's so clueless that she didn't even notice. In reality, I earn about $3,500 a month from remote work. But of course, there's no need to tell these two that. Well, if they saw the contents of the bank account, they'd probably figure it out. However, I had to clarify this to her. "Hey, Catherine, speaking of which, even though you're unemployed, you always wear only branded goods. Where did you get them from? I think you're the one behaving suspiciously, don't you think?" Though I'm not entirely sure, I suspect that my daughter-in-law who always carries the latest bags and wallets, is in debt. My son, before he was fired, was working for a decent company and was making a decent salary. It might be safe to say that she ruined everything for him. Anyway, I have no intention of prying into your private life. But if you are in debt, you might want to address it soon, or it could turn into a major issue. Also, I'd like you to leave that house as soon as possible. Now, if you'll excuse me. I felt there was still more to say. But since it's a foregone conclusion, they'll descend into hell with time, I decided to let them be. After hanging up, my son sent several apology messages, but I ignored all of them. My husband also seems to have received a call from them, but he responded even colder than I did. Up until now, we were the ones being ignored, but from now on, it's our turn to do the ignoring. Anyway, I hope they fully experience their hellish life. A few months later, I heard the young couple moved out of their house and into a run-down apartment. As expected, it seems the daughter-in-law had accumulated a considerable amount of debt. My son brought up divorce, but they decided to pay off the debt together, since there was also a significant amount in his name. There's no way the two of them, both unemployed, could repay it. So now they are working hard while being chased by debt collectors. Their hellish life probably continues, but I truly hope they give it their best. I'm currently considering a house to live in with my mother-in-law. My husband is expected to return from his business trip soon, and we plan to live a peaceful and happy life in a comfortable home.
Since we'll be living here starting today, could you please move out? We'll also pay the $473 monthly loan. Now that my daughter is coming, we no longer need you. Okay. Well, then please take care of everything from now on. Even though we had supported our in-laws so much, they easily shifted their trust to the younger sister. As I reached the entrance, packing my belongings, I told them something very important. By the way, it seems there's a misunderstanding, but the monthly loan repayment is... As I said that, their faces turned pale in shock. My name is Emily, a 35-year-old office worker. I've been married to Tom for 3 years. We met through a mutual friend who believed we'd be perfect for each other. This friend's intuition was spot on. We were drawn to each other from our first conversation. Tom also felt the same, and we began dating. We continued dating smoothly, and around 2 years later, he proposed to me. I was so happy as I loved him deeply. Both our families agreed to our marriage. We married and had a wonderful wedding attended by many. We then went on a honeymoon and began our life together as a married couple. We both have worked, and so we've shared household chores. Tom had lived alone for a long time and could cook, which was a huge help. Even when I was late from work, Tom helped me and started cooking so we could have dinner soon after. We cooperated in all household tasks, and life feels peaceful and stress-free. We have been grateful for each other's company. In the blink of an eye, 3 years passed, and our bond remains as strong as when we were newlyweds. However, a significant event occurred. Tom's father fell ill suddenly, and we rushed to the hospital. "Dad, are you okay?"
Tom, Emily, thank you for coming. Sorry for causing you concern. It seems I overexerted myself. He had been a workaholic, often working long hours. As he aged, the stress of those years took a toll on him. For now, I'll undergo some tests and wait for the results. I see. Tom and I were anxious, but more than that, my mother-in-law was quite upset. For the mother-in-law, who had always supported her husband as a housewife, it was understandable that she was upset when her partner, the mainstay of the family, was suddenly in mortal danger. Mother-in-law, are you alright? Yes, somehow. We cared deeply for both of them. We began visiting them more frequently, trying to be as supportive as possible. After a week, the father-in-law's test results came out. Although he was released from the hospital, there were concerns about a recurrence. Realizing that they might not handle another emergency, Tom proposed something. Hey, what if we live together with my parents? It was an unexpected proposal. If my parents were in the same situation, I'd want to live with them too. Of course, I'm okay with that. Let's discuss it with them right away. Thank you, Emily. We quickly proposed the idea to our in-laws. Live together? Won't it be a bother? It's not a bother at all. Emily and I are worried about both of you. Thank you, both of you. Our in-laws, teary-eyed, gratefully accepted. They must have been quite anxious. We promptly moved in with them. The mother-in-law, knowing that both of us worked, took the lead in the household chores. Thanks to her, we could focus on our jobs. The father-in-law retired early and spent his days resting at home, which improved his health. We all got along wonderfully, without any issues, and life was joyous. However, our in-laws made a certain proposal. I've been thinking about this for a while. How would you feel about building a new two-family house? Huh? It's a bit small for 4 adults to live in this house. And if Tom and Emily have children in the future, it'll be even smaller. Considering the future, I've been thinking of building a bigger house where we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives. However, it's not something we can afford with just my savings. We'll need to discuss and decide together. Tom and I were surprised by the proposal, but we thought it wasn't a bad idea. While the current in-laws' house isn't too small, it's not particularly spacious or comfortable either. Living here long-term might lead to stress building up between us. Perhaps buying a new house where everyone can live comfortably is a good idea. After discussing with Tom for a while, we decided to go along with the father-in-law's proposal. Subsequently, the 4 of us went to real estate agencies to look at various properties. We considered making it barrier-free for the in-laws and ensuring there are plenty of rooms if children come along. Ideally, it should be in a safe area close to both a hospital and a train station and have easy access to grocery stores. Given everyone's requirements, it seemed like it might be pricey. However, if we are going to live here for the rest of our lives, we don't want to compromise too much. Every family member felt the same way. So, with determination, we decided to build our dream house even if it cost a lot. After some time, our new home was finally completed. The exterior and interior were both new and beautiful, and it lifted our spirits just looking at it. This is really amazing. I can't be sick anymore. I want to stay healthy and live here for as long as possible. The in-laws seemed very pleased, and my husband and I were equally excited. This is the house that will be with us for our entire lives. When we have kids, I want to play catch in the garden and have barbecues. That sounds great. Let's make lots of family memories here. We were overflowing with excitement and joy. Living in the house turned out to be truly comfortable, and it felt like the pinnacle of happiness. Being in a comfortable home made me even more enthusiastic about my work. Subsequently, my work went very smoothly. Both my public and private lives were fulfilling, and I genuinely felt grateful for buying this house. The months passed in the blink of an eye. 2 years had passed in this house. We continued to have a good relationship with in-laws as always. We believed that the days ahead would be filled with happiness. However, amidst this blissful life in our new home, something unexpected happened. It was when the sister-in-law and her husband visited our new house. Wow, this really is a nice house. It's not fair that only you guys get to live here. What are you talking about? We discussed and decided to buy this house with our parents. But I can't help but feel envious when we are still living in a cheap renter. It feels like you're living beyond your means. The sister-in-law often visited our house during holidays and always expressed her envy. Every time, she would accuse us of being unfair. We've been paying the mortgage for this house, and it's quite a hefty amount every month. We're living within our means, earning enough to pay for this house, so there's no reason for her to complain. If we were to live here with the in-laws, it would be so much fun, don't you think? What? Can you even afford the mortgage for this house? My husband and I exchanged a glance. The sister-in-law probably just blurted out without giving it much thought. However, her careless words started to move my in-laws' hearts. It would be lovely if Kana could move and live here together. Yes, it would liven things up. Hey, what are you two talking about? Haven't we been living together all this while? Oh, come on, I was just saying. Exactly. There's no need to panic, right? Ha ha ha. While the in-laws tried to brush it off, it was evident that they were enticed by the idea of living with the sister-in-law. The in-laws seemed to have a particular affection for her, even more so than for Tom. She is a beauty with delicate features and looks like a doll during her childhood. She is also 4 years younger than Tom and was born when the in-laws were older, making them dote on her even more. This pampering led her to become quite spoiled, and Tom had to deal with her demanding nature. Having heard all this from Tom, I was always wary of my sister-in-law. For a while after we got married, Tom and I were both caught off guard because she didn't seem to be giving us any trouble. However, recently, she has been increasingly eyeing our new house. It seems she frequently visits the house during the day when you're at work. Oh, Emily, you're back? Then I'll be leaving now. Huh? I wish you'd stay a bit longer. But Tom and Emily might find it inconvenient. I don't think it's a nuisance. You might say that, but it's evident in your eyes and behavior. Unwanted guests should leave quickly. See you, Mom and Dad. Kana. When the sister-in-law left, the in-laws were visibly upset. They looked as if they wished she stayed longer. Even though they didn't voice their feelings, their faces and attitudes spoke volumes. I felt out of place and usually stayed in my room after work. When Tom came home, we'd head to the living room for dinner. The atmosphere around the dinner table got more and more tense, and there were longer silences. Tom noticed the atmosphere and seemed to realize that the sister-in-law was the cause. Around the time our relationship with the in-laws started to deteriorate, the sister-in-law finally made her move. One holiday, Tom and I went shopping in the morning. When we returned, there were unfamiliar shoes at the entrance. We exchanged glances, wondering if Mother-in-law then approached us from the living room. "You're finally back. We need to talk." The mother-in-law's tone was different than usual. When we entered the living room, the sister-in-law and her husband were there. "Ah, you're finally here. Kana, what's going on?" "From today, we'll be living here, so please leave." "What?" Tom and I were taken aback by her sudden declaration. What is she thinking, moving in today? Hold on, it's ridiculous to say that all of a sudden. It's not sudden. We've discussed this with Mom and Dad for a long time. Is it true? You discussed this with them? Tom and I knew the in-laws were swayed by the sister-in-law's words, but had no idea things had progressed this far. Kana and her husband said they'll take care of us from now on. I'll do the housework and even care for you when needed. Please rely on us, Mom and Dad. If our daughter is here, we don't need you anymore. A daughter-in-law who doesn't do housework or have children is no match for Kana. What? I was deeply hurt by their words. Seeing my shocked face, the sister-in-law smirked. We'll pay the $473 monthly loan, okay? Huh? $473? It's a great deal to live in such a nice house for that. Tom and I were dumbfounded. The in-laws were already planning to kick us out. After such treatment, we couldn't continue living there. Is that so? But we can't leave immediately. Could you give us at least a week? We need to find a new place. Fine. You're looking forward to living with Kana and her husband from today? The in-laws looked disappointed. The sister-in-law and her husband was extremely happy that we decided to leave. Calm down, Mom and Dad. The house isn't going anywhere. I'm looking forward to a week from now. The in-laws and sister-in-law's family were thrilled to drive us out. Did Tom and I seriously consider co-living for such people? We quickly arranged to view rental properties and moved out within a week, and the day to leave our home arrived. Please take care of everything from now on. Don't ever get involved with us or come to this house again. Their words were harsh. We had supported the in-laws so much, and they switched allegiance so easily. Now we can finally live with Mom and Dad in this house. Living comfortably in this house with Kana is like a dream. We got rid of the nuisance after all. Our in-laws and sister-in-law kept inserting us until the last minute we were leaving. Little did they know they would face hell after this. Well, it's none of our business anymore. As I gathered our belongings and approached the entrance, I shared an important piece of information. Oh, by the way, it seems there's a misunderstanding about the monthly mortgage payment. It's $1,825 every month, okay? Make sure you understand that. What? At my words, their faces turned pale all at once. Hold on a second. Isn't the loan just $473 a month? You misunderstood, didn't you? This house is under our father's name, so the loan is contractually agreed to be paid off through a debit from Dad's account. Emily and I were planning to live in this house for the rest of our lives, so we told him he wouldn't have to pay. We were bearing all the costs. So I was transferring $473 and Emily was transferring $1,352 to our father's account every month. I guess father only remembered how much Tom puts in father's account each month. Moreover, we split the living expenses equally. Our parents probably never thoroughly checked the cost and assumed it wasn't a significant amount. What? No way! We can't pay $1,825 a month! We can't even cover the living expenses on top of that. How can Emily afford to contribute so much? I don't know how you perceive me, but I'm a department head at a major corporation. I earn quite a lot. What? Emily earns much more than I do. It seemed the in-laws were unaware of this, as they looked shocked. Well, we decided to cut ties with you, so it's up to you to support our parents from now on. No way! Emily, Tom, wait! We were wrong. Let's live peacefully together like before, okay? What? Mom and Dad, are you planning to abandon us? You guys can't repay the loan, can you? If that's the case, shouldn't you live with those who can? That's not fair. Dad told me the loan was only about $473. That's why we came here. We've already canceled our previous house. That's not my problem. Isn't this mess because you wanted to move in with us in the first place? Right, your husband earns very little, doesn't he? But you always said I was more important than Tom and pampered me. When our livelihood is at stake, all of that doesn't matter. The quarrel between the in-laws and the sister-in-law was unbearable to watch. Well, we're leaving. Wait! Regardless of what you say, we'll never associate with you again. With that, Tom and I left the house and moved into our rented room. Despite the numerous messages from the in-laws, we ignored them all. According to our neighbors, the in-laws and the sister-in-law's family had no choice but to live together. However, they couldn't pay the loan and eventually had to let go of the house. When they sold the house, a considerable debt remained. Even after using the father-in-law's early retirement benefits for repayment, they still fell short. Currently, they live in a cheap small apartment. All three work full-time part-time jobs to repay their debt. Apparently, the sister-in-law's husband didn't want the burden to fall on him, so he ran away. If only the in-laws continued living peacefully with us, they wouldn't have faced these hardships. But again, it's none of our concern now. On the other hand, Tom and I found our rented apartment much cozier than anticipated. We plan to stay here for a while and save money. We live happily and our savings grow at an incredible rate. We believe it's essential to save as much as we can for the future. Still, we enjoy our lives with the occasional luxury. We aim for a happy life together in the years to come.
Hello, Jason, I've transferred this month's living expenses as always. Please don't waste it. I used to call Jason at the end of every month to let him know about the money transfer. Being a boy, I thought he might find it annoying if I contacted him too often. Still, I wanted to hear his voice at least once a month. Thanks for the $10 every month. I've been eating beans every day. Wait, what? I transfer $1,000 every month. What? Both of us were puzzled. My bank book showed that I always transferred $1,000 to Jason's account as usual. So why did he think it was only a tenth of that amount? You can't do anything with just $10. But isn't your company struggling right now? What are you talking about? This year has been our best in terms of performance. If anything, I've been thinking about increasing the amount I send you. Upon hearing this, Jason expressed shock. I wondered who told him my business was in trouble. The blood rushed to my head as I tried to find out who spread such rumors. Jason, don't worry, I'll sort this out. Determined, I hung up the phone and planned to pick up Jason and head straight to the police. I was sure it was his doing. I won't forgive him. My name is Catherine. I'm a 49-year-old single mother. I divorced while I was pregnant. Ever since, I've raised my eldest son, Jason, all by myself. Thankfully, my family owns a business where I've been working hard to succeed. Thanks to that, life has been stable, and Jason has never had to experience any hardships. Jason has always been a very sincere child, although sometimes a bit scatterbrained. He consistently performed well academically. When my father fell ill during Jason's elementary school years, it inspired him to pursue medicine, leading him to intensive studies. As a result, he secured a place in a prestigious medical university. I was planning to cover all his college expenses, but thanks to his hard work, he received a tuition waiver, which greatly eased our financial burden. I've always been proud of my son's achievements and diligence. Given the distance from our home to the university, about 2 hours by train, I decided to let him live independently near the campus. He found a spot in a student dormitory, which houses students from various universities. While parents aren't allowed inside the dorm, other students helped Jason with moving in. It was sad not to see his room, but it was part of him growing up. For the first few days of his independent life, Jason kept in touch regularly. However, after a week, the communications became infrequent, and by the end of the month, I hardly heard from him. 1 week before the summer vacation began, Jason called. He spoke about enjoying his classes, starting a part-time job, and planning to come home during the summer break. I was relieved to hear him sounding so upbeat. He also asked if he could bring a friend home during the break. The boy was from the same student dormitory. During summer vacation, he said he was going to stay at the dorm alone since no one would be at his family home. That's when Jason invited him, suggesting, "Why not come to my house then?" Considering Jason has always been a bit shy around new people, he must have had a special fondness for this boy to invite him over like that. I accepted the proposal immediately. Hello, when summer holiday arrived, and Jason came home with his friend, I was left speechless. I had assumed he would look as reserved as Jason. However, the boy standing at our entrance had blue hair and numerous piercings in both ears. "You're welcome. So, are you Jason's mom? You're so beautiful. Bet you're popular, huh? Well, perhaps." Ignoring my evident discomfort, Lucas, Jason's friend, entered and promptly sat on the living room sofa. His presumptuous behavior made me want to speak out, but I restrained myself, remembering he was Jason's friend. Throughout his 3-day stay, Lucas consistently gave orders or suggestions to Jason. Every time, I felt uneasy. Yet, Jason didn't seem particularly bothered. "Hey, Jason, let's hit up an arcade." "There's no arcade nearby." "Man, that's boring." I wished he'd leave if he was so bored. In those 3 days, I grew to truly dislike Lucas. Because he was always clinging to Jason, I hardly got any time with my son. I felt our precious mother-son time was being intruded upon. And honestly, I wished Lucas would leave soon. In the end, he didn't just stay for the 3 days. He lingered until Jason returned to school, depriving me of any quality time with my son. After going back to his dormitory, Jason's communications became sporadic. However, he sent me a monthly update and thanks for the allowance. So, I believed he was doing all right as he was nearing adulthood. But come fall, unusually, I received a message from Jason in the middle of the month. Sorry, I've been a bit busy and haven't been able to work part-time. I can't pay my rent. Could you send me a little money? Is it because exams are approaching? But I don't appreciate overspending. I'll send it this time, but be careful from now on. Upon hearing that, Jason responded in a dejected voice. I'm really sorry. It was an uncharacteristic issue for the normally responsible Jason. And I had a hunch that somehow Lucas might be involved. Hey, is there something troubling you right now? I'm fine. Thank you, as always. Just don't push yourself too hard. And I understand. I was concerned by Jason's lack of spirit in his voice, but assumed he was just downcast because it was his first time having financial troubles. At the end of the following month, I called Jason. Hello, Jason, I've deposited your living expenses for this month. Don't waste it. I had a routine of calling Jason at the end of every month after making the transfer. Being a young man, I thought calling too often might annoy him. But I still wanted to hear his cheerful voice at least once a month. Thanks for the monthly $10 allowance. I've been eating beans every day. What? I've been transferring $1,000 every month. Wait, what? Both of us were puzzled by each other's words. My bank book clearly showed that I had, as always, transferred $1,000 to Jason's account. Why then did Jason think he was receiving only a tenth of that amount? You can't do much with just $10. But isn't your company going through tough times? What are you talking about? This year has been our best performance-wise. I've actually been thinking of increasing the amount I send you. Upon hearing my words, Jason let out a surprised, who had told him that my company was in danger? I wanted to find out who was spreading such rumors, and I felt a surge of anger. Jason, don't worry, I'll take care of everything. I ended the call, intending to head to where Jason was and subsequently report the matter to the police. I was sure that he was the culprit. I won't forgive him. I took a taxi from the nearest station and stopped near the student dormitory. Then I called Jason and told him to sneak out without anyone seeing him. Listen, make sure no one sees you. Why? Just trust me. Jason seemed unconvinced, but he still kept his promise and discreetly left the dormitory. As he turned the corner and approached the car, I was shocked by his appearance. Mom, it's been a while. Jason, what happened to you? You look, when I saw him in the summer, he was healthy. But now, he looks skeletal, a mere shadow of his former self. What on earth had happened? I hesitantly asked Jason. Jason, you've lost so much weight. What happened? At first, Jason tried to brush it off, but he eventually began explaining his current situation. Mom, after I went back from my visit, you sent me a new bank book, remember? Since then, the allowance you sent has been reduced to $10, right? I did struggle a lot, but Lucas had mentioned during my visit that you talked about closing down the company. So I thought maybe things were tough for you. I was stunned to hear this. I had no recollection of discussing such a thing with Jason during his visit. The company was achieving its best performance ever this year, and I had no intentions of shutting it down whatsoever. Moreover, there was another thing that struck me about Jason's story. Hey, what's this about a new bank account? Indeed, Jason hasn't opened a new bank account since he was born. And I've been depositing $1,000 into the same account every month. I had a bad feeling. Jason, let's go to the police. The police? Why? The money I've been sending to Jason, someone might have stolen it. When I said that, Jason's eyes widened in disbelief. But soon, He seemed to ponder if he had any leads. Could it be Jason's suspicion might indeed be correct? I felt pain in my heart, thinking about the hurt that might be awaiting Jason in the future. However, someone has to take responsibility for doing this to Jason. Driver, please take us to the nearest police station. With my request, the taxi started moving. The taxi driver, who overheard our conversation, kindly drove us to the largest police station in the city. Upon arriving at the police station, I supported Jason as we entered. Jason, once a member of a sports club and so diligent about his diet, with a once impressive physique, now seemed frail, perhaps even lighter than me. Tears welled up in my eyes as I supported him. A young male officer at the station listened to both our stories and offered comforting words first. "You've been strong through tough times," he said, causing Jason to break down crying. Actually, we've had similar complaints from student dormitories in this area. Really, according to the officer, in the past month, about 3 families have come forward with complaints similar to ours. And all of them were pointing to one individual as the culprit. Isn't that individual, by any chance, someone named Lucas? The police sighed at my words and nodded. Jason was looking down next to me. Perhaps, even though he had suspicions, he wished deep down that it wasn't true. I placed my hand on Jason's back and looked at the officer. "Is an investigation underway?" The officer pondered for a moment and then guided Jason and me to a separate room. He asked us to submit a report on the damages we faced. Of course, I agreed and immediately filled out the report. Once the report was submitted, the person in charge informed us about the current state of the investigation. Lucas played a role similar to a contact person. He befriended the victims, obtained their bank account details and PINs, and then withdrew their money. The person receiving the money, they believed, was a specific man. Looking at the provided photo, I jumped up in surprise. "I know this man." Or what? The police were equally shocked, their eyes wide as they looked at me. I took a deep breath to calm my racing heart and began to explain about the man in the photo. "This is Liam, right? He's my ex-husband and Jason's father." "Wait, my dad?" "Yes, the man in the photo was Liam, my ex-husband. The reasons for our divorce involved financial issues and affairs with other women. After the divorce, I lost contact with him and never received any child support. However, I believed it was better for Jason not to have any bad influence from him. So I never tried to track Liam's whereabouts after that. But I never imagined he would be involved in something that would lead to police intervention." I felt the blood drain from my face. So, Jason was deceived out of his money by both a close friend and his biological father. Jason stood frozen, his mouth open in shock. Actually, we've discovered that this Liam and Lucas are father and son. Wait, what? I had met Lucas before, and he had mentioned he was the same age as Jason. Given the rigorous ID verification at Jason's student dormitory, that was likely true. But if that was the case, it meant that Liam had another woman pregnant at the same time as me, which would be an affair. Though I no longer held any feelings for Liam, the revelation was still shocking. And so, Lucas and I are brothers. Jason seemed overwhelmed by this unexpected revelation. I was also at a loss for words, having never anticipated such a twist. In light of this, we have a favor to ask. And of course, I'll cooperate in any way possible to catch those two. At my words, Jason gave a small nod in agreement. Following the police's instructions, we decided to play along with their plan. I discreetly sent Jason back to his dormitory and checked myself into a nearby business hotel. The next day, ensuring Lucas was present, I made a call. "Hello, how are you, Jason?" Jason, mentioning he was doing the dishes, deliberately put the call on speaker. From this, I deduced that Lucas was nearby, and I had a little unexpected income. So I'll be transferring some money into your account. Make sure to use it wisely." "Understood, thank you." With that, Jason ended the call. I stopped the IC recorder I had at hand and proceeded to transfer $8,000 into Jason's account. The next morning, armed with evidence Jason sent after verifying the bank transfer, I presented it to the police. Before heading to the dormitory, we made a brief stop. Once we arrived, we explained the situation to the dormitory's manager, who immediately led us to Lucas's room. Upon ringing the bell, we heard hurried footsteps approaching the door from inside. "Yeah, who is it? What the?" He swung the door open, only to freeze in his tracks, utterly shocked. In a place where outsiders were strictly prohibited, seeing me and the police officers must have been the last thing he expected. It was evident he was caught off guard. With a composed smile, I greeted the flustered Lucas. "Hello, Lucas. It's been a while. I'm Jason's mother." "Why would Jason's mother want to see me? And would the police, too?" He glanced over at Jason standing beside me and seemed to realize the nature of our visit. "We have a warrant, so we're going to conduct a search now. I have to leave now, so could we reschedule this for another time?" Without missing a beat, after hearing the officer's statement, Lucas tried to close the door forcefully. However, the police officers were prepared for this. 2 officers forcefully opened the door, initiating the search. Almost immediately after they began, voices echoed from various corners. "Found it." Lucas visibly slumped, realizing the gravity of the situation. Jason and I entered the room, leaving a deflated Lucas behind. There were multiple bank books and cards laid out on the table. All of them were under different names. My head throbbed looking at the evidence. The police officers, with practiced hands, arranged the items according to their names and started taking photographs. "How did you find out? Jason, did you set me up? I thought you were my best friend. But all along, you were mocking me internally, watching me struggle. You've got it all wrong. There's a reason for all of this." Lucas scrambled to come up with excuses, but Jason didn't react at all. Frustration marked Lucas's face, and it seemed like he was about to lash out. I stepped in. "It's pretty low to scam money from your own half-brother." "Half-brother? Who with whom?" "You and Jason." Lucas was rendered speechless by my words. Given he targeted only students, it seemed probable that he had shared the preliminary information with Liam. My family business is unique, so when Liam investigated Jason, he would have quickly realized that he's my son. Is that a lie? And it's true. Liam is my ex-husband and Jason's real father. It seems like he was cheating on me at the same time, and that's when you were born. When I said that, Lucas sat down in shock. I knew from the police investigation that Lucas had a frail sister. Soon after divorcing me, Liam quickly married his then-mistress. But I heard that she didn't want a boy, and he was left to grow up neglected. Soon after the sister was born, Liam and his mistress divorced. The sister was taken in by her maternal family due to the cost of her treatment. And it seems Lucas was taken in by Liam. They seemed to have met regularly as siblings, and during those times, Lucas gave money to their mother for treatment. Hearing this, I felt the strong bond between the siblings and Lucas, and it seemed my assumptions were correct. Did I exploit my own sibling? With those words, Lucas was taken away by the police. Jason and I went straight to the police station and were shown only our share from the confiscated bank book. Apparently, Lucas would get people drunk, go shopping with them, and check their ATM pin, then go to their room and steal their bank book, card, and ID. He would go home with them during the open holiday to check if their family was wealthy. Then, he would create a new bank account, give it to them, and when money entered the original account, he would withdraw all of it and only deposit a little into the new account. No wonder every time I updated the bank book, I couldn't see what the money was used for. I sighed upon realizing the reason. It seems Lucas quickly gave up Liam's name as an accomplice, and I was informed the next evening that Liam was also arrested. I went to the police and shared all I knew about Liam's past with them. After a while, I went to visit Liam. Jason wanted to come, but I asked him to wait outside this time. Meeting Liam after 20 years, he looked older, but his condescending attitude was still there. Man, I went too far. Liam, without any remorse, made this comment, and I had to control my anger. I forced a smile. Pathetic. Lost it all in horse racing. I'll contact my parents soon and get out of here. Liam responded casually. I slapped a piece of paper in front of him. His expression changed immediately. Hey, what is this? Oh, I told your parents everything about you. Even after divorcing Liam, I kept in touch with his sensible parents. They felt guilty and hadn't met Jason, but kept me updated with photos. When I told them I was meeting you today, they asked me to give you this. Do you realize what this is? It says disownment. Liam approached me aggressively through the glass. I calmly responded, to you, who ran away, you won't understand their struggles. They wanted to meet their grandson, Jason, but they waited until your mess was settled. You should have let them meet. You, who kept running away, shouldn't say that. A police officer in the room told me to calm down. I took a deep breath to calm myself. Anyway, I can now introduce them to their grandson. Oh, about Lucas. What about Lucas? He has nothing to do with you, right? They said they never want to see you again. They don't want anything to do with a father who exploits their half-siblings. The mother-in-law said she'd take them in. What? How am I supposed to live without them? I couldn't help but laugh at how pitiful he sounded. Maybe you should work and pay for damages, shouldn't you? Catherine, aren't we close? Help me out. No, please. Our relationship ended 20 years ago. His face displayed sheer despair upon hearing her reply, which was accompanied by her brightest smile of the day. Without heeding his plea, I left the visitation room. Afterward, more of his crimes were revealed, and he was sentenced to prison. We were relieved, as it said he won't be released for at least 5 years. The boy, being a minor, was put under probation. He's now being strictly disciplined by his grandparents. The grandparents live deep in the mountains, where there are no forms of entertainment. The boy seems to be struggling. By the way, the younger sister plans to undergo surgery overseas. The reason the boy was desperately collecting money was for her operation. However, the man had been spending that money. He seems to still seek pleasure, but every time he does, he's reprimanded by the grandparents. Jason was initially confused, but has since been studying hard to become a doctor. His grades are steadily improving, and he's approaching the time for the national exam. As for me, the company has grown even more, and I've been able to send more money to Jason. Moreover, someone who has been supporting the company alongside me suddenly proposed to me. I'm currently holding off on giving an answer. By the way, Jason seems to have suggested the proposal. He has been attached to this person since he was a child. Jason apparently advised, it's better to get married than just dating. I was somewhat impressed, thinking he knows my character so well. However, next year, with Jason's practical training and exams, expenses will increase. For now, I'm thinking of supporting Jason in his journey to become a doctor. And then I'll consider other things in the future.